Hello everyone. In this session, we will discuss about these four topics. First topic is scheduling and resource allocation, then cell search, random access procedures, and finally power control in uplink. Okay, first topic is scheduling and resource allocation. Both uplink and downlink scheduling are performed in the E node B or base station. The main aim of this scheduling and resource allocation is to efficiently allocate the available radio resources to user equipments. So, using this process, scheduling and resource allocation process, radio resources are allocated to user equipments, and this is allocated such a way that it will optimize a certain performance metric with quality of service requirement constraints. And scheduling algorithm for LTE can be divided into two categories or two types. First one is channel dependent scheduling. Here resource blocks are allocated to a user equipment based on channel condition. So, channel condition is the criteria here, and the second type is channel independent scheduling. In this method, allocation of resource blocks to a user equipment is random. So, it is not based on the channel condition. Okay, first consider channel dependent scheduling. In this case, the allocation of resource blocks to a user equipment is based on the channel condition. So, two examples are given here: proportional fairness scheduler and maximum carrier interference scheduler. This scheduling provides high spectrum efficiency in LTE systems. To better exploit the channel selectivity, the packet scheduler is located in the E node B or base station. So, this allocates physical layer resource for both the downlink shared channel and uplink shared channel transport channels in every transmission time interval. So, this resource assignment consists of both physical resource blocks and modulation and coding scheme, that is MCS. Okay, next, scheduling depends on the channel information available at the E node B. So, for scheduling process, E node B requires channel information. This information is obtained from channel sounding in the uplink channel and from CQI reporting in the downlink channel. The scheduler should also take account of the traffic volume and the quality of service requirement of the user equipment and associated radio bearers. And as we know, in LTE we use OFDMA and single carrier FDMA. Because of this, LTE is able to exploit the channel variation in both the time and frequency domain, and therefore, the channel dependent scheduling is used to exploit multi-user diversity to improve the spectrum efficiency. Okay, next, channel dependent scheduling can be further divided into two types. First one is frequency diverse scheduling and second type is frequency selective scheduling. As we discussed previously, in CQI reporting there are two types. We have discussed this in the last session. Types are wideband CQI reporting and subband CQI reporting. So, in the first category, frequency diverse scheduling, the user equipment selection is based on wideband CQI, but the physical resource block allocation in the frequency domain is random. And in frequency selective scheduling, the user equipment selection is based on both wideband and subband CQI, and the physical resource block allocation is based on the subband CQI. Therefore, it can exploit both time and frequency selectivity of the channel. Next, we will discuss on the signaling for both downlink and uplink scheduling. Okay, next is signaling for scheduling in downlink and uplink. The E node B scheduler dynamically controls which time frequency resources are allocated to a certain user equipment in both downlink and uplink. So, in both uplink and downlink direction, time frequency resources are allocated to the user equipment using E node B scheduler. The resource assignments, including the assigned time frequency resources and respective transmission formats, are conveyed through downlink control signaling. And the minimum size of radio resource that can be allocated to a user equipment corresponds to 2 resource blocks. Actually, this corresponds to 1 millisecond duration in the time domain and 180 kilohertz in the frequency domain. Both localized and distributed resource allocations are supported in the downlink, while in the uplink user equipments are assigned contiguous resources. So, only localized resource allocation is supported in the uplink, whereas in downlink both localized and distributed resource allocations are supported. In the uplink we are using only localized resource allocation. This allocation is less sensitive to frequency offset and also requires fewer reference symbols. Okay, first let us consider signaling for downlink scheduling. The channel state information at the E node B for the downlink scheduling is obtained through CQI reporting from user equipments. This CQI is either wideband or subband, but for frequency selective scheduling it requires subband CQI reporting. Based on the CQI, E node B dynamically allocates resources to user equipments at each transmission time intervals. Then a user equipment monitors the physical downlink control channel for possible allocations and decode the physical downlink control channel with cyclic redundancy check bits. That is, user equipment is configured by the higher layers to decode the physical downlink control channel with cyclic redundancy check bits. Okay, the user equipment shall decode the physical downlink control channel and any corresponding physical downlink shared channel according to the respective combinations given in the table. So, in this table 9.16, we have user equipment downlink transmission mode defined from mode 1 to mode 7. Then we have downlink control identifier format 1A1, 2A, 2, 1D, etc. Then we have transmission scheme of PDSCH. So, next we will see how to decode the PDCCH and PDSCH based on the combinations given here. Here PDCCH and PDSCH are configured by CRNTI. This CRNTI is a cell radio network temporary identifier. Basically, this is the unique identifier used for radio resource control connection and scheduling. So, there are 7 downlink modes. Suppose a user equipment is configured in mode 3 or mode 4. If user equipment receives a format 1A assignment, then it will assume that transport block 2 is disabled and physical downlink shared channel transmission is assigned with transport block 1. So, from the table you can see that for this transmit diversity is applied. So, this is how user equipment will decode the PDCCH and PDSCH based on the combinations given here. Next, to determine the modulation order and transport block size, the user equipment shall first read the 5-bit modulation and coding scheme field, that is IMCS, in the downlink control identifier. So, length of this is 5-bit. Therefore, there are 32 combinations. So, these 32 different values are given in the first column. MCS index IMCS varies from 0 to 31. So, here TBS is the transport block size. So, based on this we can also find the TBS index. As you can see here, the mapping between the MCS index, then modulation order and TBS index, that is ITBS, are shown in the table. Different MCS index may be mapped to the same TBS. Here you can see that for example, IMCS 9 and 10 are mapped to ITBS of 9. So, this results in the same data rate for both the combinations. Okay, next let us consider the signaling for uplink scheduling. In the uplink, the channel state information is estimated at the E node B with the help of sounding reference signals. So, using SRS, sounding reference signals, channel state information is estimated in the uplink, and continuously user equipment monitors the PDCCH. So, this monitoring is required to find possible allocation for uplink transmission. Only contiguous resource blocks can be allocated to a user equipment due to single carrier frequency division multiple access nature of the uplink transmission. So, as we discussed previously, SCFDMA is used for the uplink transmission. Therefore, we can use only contiguous resource block allocation, and also we can use frequency hopping to get additional diversity. The user equipment obtains the uplink resource allocation as well as frequency hopping information from the uplink scheduling grant received 4 subframes earlier. That means, if user equipment detects a PDCCH with DCI format 0 in subframe N, then it will adjust the corresponding PUSH transmission in subframe N plus 4. So, there is a 4 unit of delay. Next, to determine the modulation order, redundancy version and transport size for the PUSH, the user equipment shall first read the 5-bit IMCS, that is modulation and coding scheme and redundancy version in the downlink control identifier. This we will see in the next table. Okay, in this table, the mapping between MCS index, modulation order and TBS for the PUSH channel is given. So, in the first column we have modulation and coding scheme index, then in the second column there is a modulation order, then transport block size index is given in the third column, and HARQ redundancy version is given in the fourth column. So, redundancy version 0, 1, 2 and 3 are shown here. That means, IMCS also indicates the HARQ redundancy version in the PUSH. And also you can see that there is a modulation overlap. For example, for IMCS 10 and 11 are mapped to ITBS 10. Therefore, code rate is same. Okay, next consider multi-user MIMO signaling. If multi-user MIMO is used in the uplink, two user equipment should transmit orthogonal reference signals in order for the E node B to separate them. So, since there are multiple users, user equipment should use orthogonal reference signals, so that E node B can separate the user equipments. And the uplink resource allocation is indicated on physical downlink control channel using DCI format 0. So, this contains a 3-bit field to indicate the cyclic shift in the reference signals. When multi-user MIMO is used in the downlink, two rank 1 user equipments are multiplexed on the same physical resource. In this case, the power for each user equipment is reduced by 3 dB. So, this 3 decibel reduction is indicated by the power offset field in the DCI format identifier. Okay, next topic is cell search. When a user equipment powers on, it needs to acquire time and frequency synchronization with the cell and detect the physical layer cell ID of the cell through the cell search procedure. That means, the first procedure a user equipment needs to do after powering on is to acquire time and frequency synchronization with the cell and obtain necessary system information. And during this cell search operation, different types of information need to be identified by the user equipment. This includes symbol and frame timing, frequency, then cell identification numbers, transmission bandwidth, antenna configuration and the cyclic prefix length. So, during this synchronization or cell search procedure, these different fields are identified by the user equipment. Okay, this diagram shows a hierarchical cell search scheme. It is a 3-step process. In the first step, symbol timing, frequency offset and cell ID index NID2 is detected. and in the second step frame timing cell ID group index NID1 is calculated, and in the third step other system information from physical broadcast channel are detected. So, we will discuss this in detail in the next slides. So, basically there are a total of 504 unique physical layer cell IDs. These are grouped into 168 physical layer cell ID groups. So, this NID1 is equal to 0, 1 up to 167. This represents the group. Each group contains 3 physical layer IDs, and these are represented as NID2, which is equal to 0, 1, 2. This represents the physical layer ID within the cell ID group. Already we have discussed this in the previous chapter. Okay, next let us see how cell search operation is carried out using 3 steps. So, in the step 1, the user equipment detects the symbol timing and the cell ID index NID2 from the primary synchronization signal. So, as you know, there are 2 synchronization signals used, primary and secondary synchronization signal. In the first step, user equipment detects the symbol timing and the cell ID index NID2 from the primary synchronization signal. Then this is achieved through match filtering between the received signal and the primary synchronization sequences. There are 3 orthogonal sequences defined for the primary synchronization signal. The cell ID index NID2 can be detected by identifying the received sequence, and frequency and timing synchronization can be performed based on the primary synchronization signal. Here OFDM symbol timing can be detected. Next, in step 2, the user equipment detects the cell ID group index NID1 and frame timing from the secondary synchronization signal. So, here the index NID1 is detected by identifying the shift in the received signal, and the pair of secondary synchronization signals in a radio frame has a different structure than primary synchronization signal. So, this structural difference in the frame can be used for detecting the frame timing, because structure of secondary synchronized signal and primary synchronization signal are different. So, this property is used for detecting the frame timing. And in the third step, last step, after the cell search, the user equipment can detect the broadcast channel to obtain other physical layer information. So, this information may be like system bandwidth, number of transmission antennas, system frame number, etc. Okay, at this stage, the user equipment detects MIB from the PBCH. So, in the third stage, as you know, the system information is divided into master information block and system information block. We call it as MIB and SIB. So, in this third stage, the user equipment detects MIB from the broadcast channel. Then to maintain the uplink intracell orthogonality, uplink transmission from different user equipment should arrive at the E node B within the cyclic prefix. So, then only intracell orthogonality is achieved. The user equipment advances or delays its timing of transmission to compensate for propagation delay, and thus time aligns its transmission with other user equipments. So, to compensate for propagation delay, user equipment it will advance or delay its timing of transmission. This is achieved through the timing advance procedure. Okay, next topic is random access procedures. In LTE system, 2 types of random access mechanisms are used. First one is non-synchronized random access, and second type is synchronized random access procedure. In non-synchronized random access, here the random access is used when the user equipment uplink has not been time synchronized. So, uplink is not synchronized, or when the user equipment uplink loses synchronization. So, this is used to achieve synchronization of the uplink, and then to inform the E node B that the user equipment has data for transmission, or to transmit a small amount of control information and data packets. And synchronized random access is used when uplink synchronization is present. So, this is used to request resources for uplink data transmission from the E node B scheduler. Now, we will discuss the non-synchronized random access procedure here. Okay, consider this non-synchronized random access procedure. This non-synchronized access allows the E node B to estimate the user equipment transmission timing and inform the user equipment about the timing correction. After achieving uplink synchronization, the user equipment may request resources for uplink transmission. So, before initializing the non-synchronized random access procedure, each user equipment obtains the following information broadcast from E node B. So, first one is random access channel parameters, including physical random access channel configuration. Then second parameter is frequency, position and preamble format, and then parameters for determining the route sequence and their cyclic shifts in the preamble sequence set for the cell. Okay, the non-synchronized random access procedure consists of following steps. So, as you can see in the figure, there are 4 steps in this non-synchronized random access procedure. In the first step, multiple user equipments transmit randomly selected random access code. In response to this, in the second step, E node B conducts a multi-user detection process and then allocates resources to the detected user equipments. And in the third step, each user equipment transmits detailed information using allocated resources. So, it is given as scheduled transmission here. And after this, in the fourth step, the E node B transmits the contention resolution message on the downlink shared channel. If these steps are completed successfully, then E node B and user equipments can start data communication. So, in the next slides, we will discuss these 4 steps in detail. Okay, consider step 1. Here there is a random access preamble transmission from user equipment to the base station or E node B. So, all the steps or procedures are explained here. The user equipment randomly selects a random access preamble transmitted by E node B and transmits on the physical random access channel. And in this transmission, initially transmit power is decided using open loop power control. Then multiple user equipments may transmit their random access preamble simultaneously through the same channel. So, in the given cell area, there are many users, therefore, multiple users they may transmit their random access preamble simultaneously. Then E node B monitors the random access channel and conducts multi-user detection identifying each RACH transmission. The random access channel signals from the different user equipments are based on the Z of choose sequence with different cyclic shift, resulting in a zero cross correlation between them. So, this zero cross correlation is very important because it allows the E node B to simultaneously detect multiple user equipments. So, here correlation based detection process is used, and then the E node B also calculates the timing correction for the uplink transmission for each user equipment. Next, step 2, random access response procedure is explained here. If a random access attempt is detected, then E node B sends random access response to all the user equipments. So, procedure is explained. The E node B transmits the corresponding random access response on the downlink shared channel, which contains the identity of the detected preamble, then timing correction for uplink transmission, temporary identity for transmission in following steps, and an initial uplink resource grant. So, various parameters are sent in the random access response, and the random access response message can also include a back off indicator. So, this back off indicator informs the user equipment to back off for a specified amount of time before making another random access attempt. Okay, the uplink scheduling grant for the following uplink transmission contains 20 bits. So, in the table the content of random access response grant is given. There are 6 information types, and the number of bits required for representing each information type and purpose is also given. So, total number of bit or length of the random access response grant is 20 bit. Information type, number of bits used, and purpose of the information type, it is given in the table. Just go through it. Okay, as you know, in the first step, user equipment will send random access preamble to the E node B. So, after transmitting this random access preamble, the user equipment will monitor the physical downlink control channel for random access response. This random access response is identified by the Random Access Radio Network Temporary Identifier, or RA-RNTI. If the received random access response matches the transmitted preamble, then the user equipment may stop monitoring. Okay, next step 3 is scheduled transmission. This step is required for contention resolution. After step 2, the user equipment is uplink synchronized and can transmit additional messages on scheduled uplink shared channel. And if the user equipments that perform random access attempts in the same time frequency resource use different preambles, there is no collision, because now E node B can identify different user equipments using different preambles. But if multiple user equipment selects the same preamble, then it causes a collision. To resolve the contention for access, the user equipment that detects a random access preamble transmits a message containing a terminal identity. If the user equipment is connected to a cell, then cell radio network temporary identifier, or CRNTI, will be used. Otherwise, a core network identifier is used. This core network identifier is a unique user equipment ID at the cell level. Okay, next step is contention resolution. This is the last step. Here the E node B transmits the contention resolution message on the downlink shared channel. So, this contention resolution message, it carries the identity of the user equipment which is selected for the data transmission, and the user equipment that observes a match between this identity in the contention resolution message and the identity transmitted in step 3 declares a success, and this particular user equipment completes its random access procedure, and the user equipment with successful access will transmit an HARQ acknowledgement. So, only user equipment which is success in accessing the resource will transmit an HARQ acknowledgement. So, here in the fourth step, HARQ protocol is used. So, these 4 steps are used in the non-synchronized random access process. So, these steps are very important. Okay, next last topic is power control in uplink. In LTE, the power control in the uplink is to control the interference caused by user equipments to neighboring cells while maintaining the required signal to interference plus noise ratio at the serving cell. So, here intercell interference, it is mainly due to user equipments at the cell edges, because in LTE uplink intra-cell interference is removed using single carrier FDMA, but inter-cell interference is the major cause of interference and performance degradation in LTE. Therefore, here we will discuss the power control scheme for the physical uplink shared channel transmission in the uplink. There are 2 power control mechanisms used in the uplink. First method is conventional power control, CPC. So, this conventional power control in the uplink is to achieve the same SINR for different user equipments at the base station, but it suffers low spectral efficiency as the common SINR is limited by the cell edge user equipments. So, this is the drawback. Okay, to overcome the drawbacks associated with the previous power control method, in LTE system fractional power control is used. This is an open loop power control scheme which allows for full or partial compensation of path loss and shadowing. So, because of this compensation of path loss and shadowing, this allows the user equipments with higher path loss also. Usually path loss is more for cell edge user equipments because it is at higher distance from the base station. So, here cell edge user equipments can operate with lower SINR requirements. So, definitely because of this it generates less interference to other cells or neighboring cells. There is also a closed loop power control component which is to further adjust the user equipment transmission power to optimize the system performance. Okay, in a fractional power control scheme, user equipment will adjust the transmission power according to this given formula. P equal to minimum of P max comma 10 log m plus P naught plus alpha into PL, and this value is expressed in millidecibels. And here P max is a maximum user equipment transmission power, and capital M represents the number of assigned physical resource blocks, and P naught is the parameter that controls the mean received signal to noise ratio, and alpha is the path loss compensation factor, and PL is the downlink path loss estimate calculated in the user equipment. But if we only consider path loss and assume that 10 log m plus P naught plus alpha into PL is less than or equal to P max, then we can write the received signal power at the E node be as PR equal to P minus PL, and this is equal to 10 log m plus P naught plus alpha minus 1 PL millidecibels. If alpha equal to 1, then each user equipment has a constant received power. This corresponds to full compensation or channel inversion. Next, if alpha equal to 0, then each user equipment has same transmission power and it is independent of path loss, that means no power control. If you keep 0 less than or equal to alpha less than 1, that means alpha lies between 0 to 1. In this case, it is the fractional power control, and different user equipments will have different PR depending on their path loss to the serving base station. That means we can see that reducing the value of alpha decreases the transmission power of the cell edge user equipments. So, cell edge user equipments cause a high level of interference to neighboring cells. Therefore, by adjusting the path loss compensation factor alpha, we can reduce the inter-cell interference and we can improve the spectrum efficiency. Okay, next consider both open loop and closed loop component. In this case, user equipment sets the total transmission power based on the new formula, and that formula is minimum of maximum P comma 10 log m plus P naught of j plus alpha j into PL plus delta MCS plus f of delta I millidecibels. So, there are three different PSH transmission types based on j value. So, here j corresponds to 1, 2 and 0. For PUSCH transmission or retransmissions corresponding to semi persistent grant, j equal to 0, and for dynamic scheduled grant, j equal to 1, and for random access response grant, j equal to 2. So, based on the grant type, j value is selected, and here delta MCS is a user equipment specific parameter. This depends on selected modulation and coding scheme, and delta I is a user equipment specific closed loop correcting value, and this correction value included in the PDCCH, and we have function f. It performs closed loop power control based on the delta I value. So, with this module 4 is completed. In today's session we have discussed 4 topics: scheduling, resource allocation, then cell search, random access procedures, and finally power control in uplink. So, fourth module is completed, and in the next session we will start with module 5. Okay, thank you.